As many of you know, I went through an unexpected surgery in July of 2024, last summer. And having had time to reflect over the past few months, I really wanted to make this video partly as closure for myself, but also to share the experience, what happened physically, and kind of some of the lessons I learned going through that experience. So let me start with the surgery itself. So this was back in, as I mentioned, in July. I was 2 weeks out of the Chicago Pro. So everything felt good in terms of my health, training. There were no hints that there was anything significant brewing, I'll say. So it was a Sunday. I usually train legs Sunday. Meals were sort of very, very typical. So nothing out of the ordinary that day. That evening, I started to get pretty severe abdominal cramps, which is not something that's usual for me. I sort of chalked it up to, well, it's just something that'll subside. It continued on through the night, through the next day. And I am not someone who likes to go to a doctor, to the hospital, but it got to a point where something in my head said, just check and see what's going on here. So initially, I thought maybe it's kidney stones or gallbladder or something along those lines, because I was quite distended and there was quite a lot of pain. So I went to the emergency department at the hospital that's not too far from me. And they, as you know, in emergency, they put you through triage. So they did some testing with anything that's abdominal, like my symptoms. They do a CT scan, which they did. And so it was a long period of waiting. They put me on intravenous and then morphine for the pain sort of right away. And around midnight, or shortly before midnight, the surgeon came in, and which was a bit of a surprise, and with a consent form, and said, you have a twisted bowel, your colon is twisted to the point where it's danger of ischemia, they call it. So the blood supply is cut off and the bowel could die, which is not a good thing. So they said, she said, we need to do a surgery. So it was quite a shock. But as she explained, it was considered an emergency situation. And so I signed the form, went off into the surgery, and I think it was about a 3-hour surgery, and woke up the next morning in the surgery bed. So apparently these bowel obstructions or a twisted colon is something that can just happen. It's sometimes if you had surgeries before, I've had a couple of C-sections, but it's not a usual thing. It's quite uncommon and just kind of a fluke, so luck of the draw. I spent 3 or 4 days recovering. And at that time I was still, I think, a combination of optimism. So I like to sort of stay optimistic and think I'll be able to get through this quickly and I'll be recovered and back in the gym in no time. But probably as I think more about it, there's a pretty big piece of denial in there too, that this wasn't as serious as it actually was. So I got home, was on kind of a restricted soft food diet. I could only walk. I wasn't supposed to lift or be weight training for at least 6 weeks because of the surgery was an abdominal incision about 5 inches down the midline of the abdominals. So you have to be careful with lifting. And things were going okay until about the third or fourth day. And I was here in the house, had been out for a walk around 6 o'clock at night and collapsed, just in the worst pain I've ever had in my life. I've had 2 kids, but I haven't had any broken bones or anything, too serious happen to me. So this pain was very severe. So we called the ambulance. They came, took me back to emergency. And what they figured out was when they removed part of my colon, they sew the pieces back together. And what happened was there was a leak. So the contents of your bowel are leaking out. This is not a good thing. So they sort of consulted, the surgeons consulted. There was one option to redo the surgery. If that had been the case, I would have had an ostomy bag for some period of time. And the other option was just what they call bowel rest. So they said, we'll give you antibiotics, we'll give you the painkillers, we'll just let your body rest for a few days and it should heal up. So I thought, great, again, being an optimist, okay, great, be a couple days. I was still in my shorts and t-shirt. 2 days turned into 3 days. They did a second and then a third CT scan, and they learned the leak was actually getting bigger. So This was very disheartening. I thought this is probably one of the low points in the whole process. So what I thought was going to be initially 2 or 3 days to kind of rest turned into 10 days. 7 of those days were no food, no water, not even ice chips. So it was very restricted. They put in, they call it a PICC line or a central line. So that was IV nutrition. And then they put in through interventional radiation drain in my abdominals to sort of help heal the fluid that was leaking out. So after about 6 or 7 days, things did take a turn for the better, and was able to get out of the hospital in 10 days. Did have a surgical drain for probably 4 to 6 weeks after that. But yeah, the recovery went quite well, and here I am today. So since getting home from the hospital the second time, which was about 10 days ago, I've just been slowly trying to get a little more activity in each day. They are very, they do encourage you to move as much as you can, just to sort of keep everything flowing. But yeah, so it's definitely pretty fatigued the first few days. Got a lot more energy every day, so I'm seeing a lot more difference. My appetite's great, digestion's been good, sleep's been improving quite a bit. So yeah, feeling pretty good. It's a process, this whole recovery. In making this video and thinking about this experience, I think what I really wanted to share was, this is something that happened to me, but virtually everyone has some kind of adversity they go through. And oftentimes it's something that's completely out of your control. So whether it's a car accident or an injury or something medical, there are often times in our life where we're just faced with these challenges that are not of our own making, not something we wish on ourselves, but we have to navigate those experiences. As I said, a lot of times it's out of your control, but what you can control is how you choose to respond. And there's a Stoic principle that really resonates with me. It's called amor fati, which means love your fate. And the idea is that things happen to us for a reason, they're for our growth. And certainly while you're going through it, I cannot say that I loved any part of this, but I do recognize, again, in hindsight, that it was something that really helped me build resilience, that forced me to really draw on my own resources to get through the healing process and to not spiral down a very negative hole and feel sorry for myself and all that sort of thing. So it's a little bit hard to explain, but a couple of people had said to me, "Oh, you must be bored in the hospital. You've been in there so long." But you're really it's hard to describe in that kind of state. I don't know if it's the painkillers or what it is, but it's almost like everything's in suspension. So you're in sort of a dream state. I remember obviously getting through the days, but I slept probably 90% of the time. Again, probably the painkillers they had me on, but you're not aware of missing out on anything, or like you feel like you should be doing something. So the days kind of went by, but it's like a chunk of time that's just removed from your life. It's very, very hard to explain. But in the moments when I had time to sort of, the wheels were turning, there were a couple of people that I thought of a lot. And because these are people that went through very difficult experiences, and I remembered their response was always upbeat, positive. Their outlook, at least towards me or in my interactions with them, was always very positive. So Tanya Chartrand is one. She's a friend of mine, fellow women's physique competitor. She went through, I think it was 5 surgeries actually. It's about 2 years ago. And again, it was just sort of a bad circumstance where she had to have some reconstructive surgery. She stayed positive. She got through that. Of course, she couldn't train for quite a long time, but within a year, not only was she back lifting and able to compete, she was able to compete on the Masters Olympia stage. So she came up a lot in my thoughts. Another person is Dwayne Jackson. Dwayne's a friend of mine. I've known him a long time. And he went through a kidney transplant probably 6 or 7 years ago, maybe not quite that long, but And Dwayne, if you know him, he's very positive. His outlook is always to kind of accept the things he goes through. He would probably tell you, it's hard to believe, but that he's happy it happened to him. So I thought of how he dealt with sort of a very difficult medical situation. So those people who have injuries in the gym and they're back quite soon and they're positive. So all those people were sort of floating around in my mind and helped me sort of move along and stay positive and focused on getting better. When you're in a situation like this, I can say, and most people know this, hospitals are very isolating. So bodybuilders by nature are very tied to their routine. So I'm eating the same foods every day. I'm in the same gym every day, and all that's kind of taken away from you for a period of time. So, and I kept deliberately the people that I told about this. I kept that circle very small, partly because I knew I needed the people who would say, "It sucks that you're going through this, but we know you're strong. We're here for you. You're going to get through it." And that's a small group of people that I know and trust that support me. When I think more about it, it's also probably, again, that little denial piece of not wanting to, for example, post it on social media while I was going through it, because I wanted to kind of preserve the image of being a strong woman who's invincible. So I obviously told the story kind of after I got through it, but at the time I was careful with who I told. But any notes that came in, any DM, the visitors that came by, my husband got sick partway through this, but my daughter was there every single day after work. And even if I was asleep the whole time, just having somebody in the room and not being alone was a really big help. So, and then the other thing that was interesting with the healing process was when you're in a situation like that, the nurses are coming in, and the question that I get asked like 100 times a day was, "How's your pain? How's your pain? How's your pain?" And you give them a number on 1 to 10, and they just keep giving you the morphine. So something in my head, whether it was divine intervention or that spirits or something, started saying to me pretty strongly, "Are you really in pain, or are you just uncomfortable?" And I don't know where that question came from, but I started realizing, okay, wait a minute, I can rely on some of the resources that I believe in, things like breath work, sound healing, and those things to try and help my body heal itself and say no to the painkillers, which I did. And things progressed very rapidly after that, to the point where I was out of the hospital within a couple of days. So just got to keep that in mind. Like, you have, your body has a lot of power to heal itself. Draw on that when you can. It's difficult, but it does really speed things along. So I think just the message I wanted to share, and again, as I say, we all go through difficult times, things that are challenging, but rely on your inner voice and the tools that you have to help you get better. Make sure you're fostering those close relationships that are really important, because at a time like this, it really is critical. So bodybuilders do tend to be a little bit closed off, I think, especially in a prep situation where they sometimes cut people out of their lives temporarily. That's a big risk, because at times like this, you really need those people. So make sure you're fostering those relationships. Yeah, just keep in mind that even though it's difficult, the tendency to focus on what's happening 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 12 weeks out, and that goal, in times like this, you really get forced to pull yourself back to the day, in the moment. What can I do today to get through and be a little bit better so that I can get out of this place? Again, partly optimistic, partly denial. In my mind, I felt I was 100% recovered pretty quickly after I had that drain removed. So around September, I was able to get back into the gym. My strength started coming back. My diet has changed, but it's not too far off my bodybuilding diet, so that's fine. But I was kind of a little bit naively thinking, okay, I'm 100% now, and not sort of accepting that there are some things that are permanently going to be different, and then it's a significant change. But yeah, still try to keep optimistic. Training has been great, so the training's been good. I really don't have any. I really feel good again and healthy. Competing wise, it is something I would like to do again, but I just have, again, as I say, I've been forced to sort of keep my outlook shorter time frame and just kind of focus on, yeah, like making every day as good as you can, and hopefully I'll be back on stage again soon. And yeah, that's all you can do. So I appreciate all the support that I've gotten from you. If you're interested in kind of following along the journey and see how things unfold in the next few months, over the next year or two, please follow me on Instagram. I'll be continuing to make YouTube content, and the hope is that a return to stage would be with a physique that's better than it was when I was about to step on stage in Chicago. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'd love to have you. I appreciate you following along, and